Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations on Showing Up for Kids. My name is Tim Markle. I'm director of the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. We are out of the Waisman Center. We cover 14 counties in southern and southwest Wisconsin, but darn it all, we've got friends all across the state. So we are excited that we are here today. Today we are holding a parent panel, sort of a parent conversation about what do family needs? What do families need? And so you are welcome to join in the discussion. I will moderate as best I can. We want to talk about what is it that families who have children with special health care needs, what are their needs, and how can they support each other? Because it's kind of rough out there sometimes as a family member. And so we want to talk amongst ourselves what sort of ideas we have. I'll be taking some notes and maybe putting together a resource sheet if we come up with some resources or ideas. But to start off, would like to introduce Rose Cutting and Sandy Tierney, who have been part of our panels in the past, Felicia Turner, who is working with us at the Waisman Center. I now know everybody else on the call has been associated in some way, shape, or form, either with Conversations or another part of Southern Regional Center. So glad you are all here as well. But I hope that at least Sandy, Rose, and Felicia have had a chance to at least think about the starting question about what might families need. Also, fair warning, I'm probably going to turn off my video because I really need to get some food, or else I'm just going to shake through the rest of the afternoon. I have misjudged my caffeine intake horribly today. So Sandy, Rose, would you like to start us off, or Felicia, would you like to start us off with just sort of what you think families need?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I can. I think the most important thing that families need as it relates to showing up for their children is support. Support and someone to listen to them. And when I say listen, not just listen to hear, but listen to understand for families what it is like to go through the experiences that they are going through. That way, when you're providing the support that they need, you know how to support them, rather that's showing up at their home for a day of respite to allow for them to have an opportunity for self-care or even to spend time with other children. Support could also look like telling your child who does not have a disability about a person who has a disability and letting them know that sometimes people may appear or even act a different way than them. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be treated with care, concern, and respect. So again, going back to what I think we need, support and someone to listen and hear them out.
And I would say that that is 100% true, and that also adds with it the piece of navigation. So someone to help, once you fully understand what that person needs, you can support by providing navigation and help with getting connected to things, making sure those connections are actually happening, that the person is getting what they truly need, that service supporter system is functioning as it is intended to for the benefit of that family. Kind of with that reminder that these services, supports, and systems exist because families need them. They would not exist otherwise. So are they remembering to put those families' needs first? And can you help make sure that that family is getting their needs met? And if that particular service supporter system is not going to be able to do it, can you help them find something else? Keep trying, keep sticking with them, be a part of that process, join with them once you have understood what they really need by really listening.
And I'm going to go ahead and agree with both of them and also add that support maybe has to start with the WH questions. I don't think any family comes into this whole journey of having a child with special health care or developmental needs. I don't think any of them comes into it with any sort of knowledge of what they're supposed to ask and what support they're supposed to know that they need. And you know what? Guess what? The minute you figure that out, it's gonna change. You need the support, but you also need those entities that, for lack of better reference, maybe have taken a sales course or two about how to be an outside salesman and know how to pull the information out of the customer so they know if they've got a product that's going to work and how that's going to work for them and where they are and how to best place that product.
So Rose, could you talk a little bit more about that sort of analogy? Are you talking about trying to help parents find the words that they need because the system uses its own language? How exactly could you help me understand that a little bit more?
Sure, but I really thought I said it all, but that's okay. No, I'm just kidding.
It could just be me.
No, I'm just picking on you. So one of the really cool things that I think everybody everywhere needs is this really cool card that says, oh, sorry, I'm buzzed out. It says jargon card, to give the ability to be sitting in a meeting and basically hold a card up and say, I'm lost. You know, I think often it's described once your child is not, it's very evident your child is not going to take a typical path that most children take. It's a grieving process, but along with the grieving process, it's an overwhelming, you know, for myself, it was that self-reflection. What did I do wrong? You know, how did I make this happen? So not only are you trying to go through your own to figure out what you need, you now have to be in charge of what this child needs that is not typical and not there. So if, let's take, for example, going to a doctor for the first time to say, I have a concern about my child, right? And instead of them saying something effective, like for us, it was our oldest child. And the common, you know, it's your oldest child, your older parents, you speak for them, you know, or it's the third child, everybody else speaks for them. Instead of having that be the first response, that I'm concerned my child doesn't communicate, why couldn't it be a question of, what are you seeing? Can you describe it to me? So they can gather more information. And so the reason I termed it as, I used jargon and said WH questions, is because our child truly could not understand and still has difficulty navigating WH questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? So to have somebody come in, like I went through egg sales class, one of the first things they teach you is, you know, all the products back in the warehouse that might potentially benefit this farmer, right? But they don't know what you all have. They just know what their problems are or what their successes are that you might be able to help build on. So you're taught how to have a conversation with them and ask them those targeted questions to see where your products might best fit into helping them. That's kind of what I meant. Did I screw it up even more?
Rose, what I'm hearing in there that I love is that the focus is more on understanding the person and what they need, rather than saying, this is what I have to offer and how am I going to make you fit it. It should really be the other way around. And also with the lack of the jargon and more of the what are you seeing, that gives that opportunity to see and understand. And as the professional, then that's the person who needs to be getting as much information as possible, rather than saying, does your child communicate? Yes, no. Does your child use this to communicate? Yes, no. Because then it doesn't allow for that breadth and depth of what's really going on for the child. And it's easy to end up kind of down one pathway and making assumptions that may or may not be accurate, because with those very short and limited questions, you get a limited response. So you're not getting a full picture, which then doesn't allow you to say, how do I meet this person's need? It becomes more of, well, I have this. So by really broadening it and saying, what are you seeing? What are your concerns? Then you really let the person tell a story that gives a much more fleshed out view of who they are and what their needs are. Kind of back to Felicia's understanding piece. It's like, oh, that's how you get to understanding and really listening to the person, is asking good questions that allow you to really let that person tell you who they are, rather than you try to figure it out by narrowly asking.
I would also like to invite people that if they would like to join the conversation, feel free to unmute. I can call on you or just go ahead and begin speaking, and we will do our best to not speak over you. If you're more comfortable using chat, please feel free to put something in the chat and I will read it for you. Thank you.
Well, I can chime in. I mean, I definitely hear those conversations with families. I support families in the Madison School District. And, you know, a lot of times I always tell families, you don't know what you don't know. So reach out and look, you know, ask questions, and we need to reach back out to you and be asking those questions as well. You know, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the state, but here in Madison, our families with children with disabilities are really, really struggling to get support from community-based providers for respite, for personal care. And, you know, I've just seen how it's impacted the kids at school, and then as well as the families at home who are really just on a brink of some really scary things happening. And, you know, I don't know if the other folks are experiencing that, but it's definitely something that I'm seeing in Madison and Dane County.
I think Felicia, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Ally, go ahead.
Sorry, Ruth. Yeah, I definitely agree to seeing just the generalized lack of support for families and the families that I support as well, which has been really taxing. But my big question is, what would be some examples of some more targeted or most beneficial questions that either you've asked a family that you've gotten more information, or that families have maybe asked you?
I guess, Ellie, if a family calls myself, my first thing is to take notice, especially if it's a phone call, take notice of the tone. And just hear, I'm all about, even though they're on a phone call, I'm all about nonverbal communication, because they're gonna tell you so much with that tone. And one of the really cool things then is to just go in to it. And I know I have probably this amount of time to get information. And so my first thing is to assure them, this isn't a one and done phone call. You now have my cell phone. You can call me when, how, whatever you need. But right now, tell me why you're calling me. And they just start telling me whatever part of their story they want. And the only follow-up, the only time I break into their conversation is if I have an immediate, like, okay, I need you just to clarify this really quick. Otherwise, I just listen to them, because I've learned they are gonna tell you what they need without knowing they're telling you what they need. But I want to point out one thing Felicia said, and she mentioned something that's really kind of cool, because she said, I'm going to support them for their child and the rest of their family. Because sometimes you have to be ready to support something, or know you need support in something you had no idea you needed. Our oldest has 2 siblings. They need just as much help, almost more, when he needs it too. And that's when it gets hard. So you got to listen to what Felicia said about, it's going to be more than just that one child they're calling about.
I really love that point, Rose, because we have to remember that, you know, our children are growing up within this family or some sort of community, some sort of family, however you want to define family or community. And so what happens with that family or the community the child's in is going to affect the child. And whatever happens with the child is going to affect that family, that community. And so having that sort of that outlook that, okay, I may know and I be able to listen to what the needs are for the child, but can I also think about the family and what can be done to support the other members of that family? Is it a connection to a social service agency? Is it, and we know that not all services are available everywhere. Is we have a horrible lack of service, like you guys have already said about respite and personal care workers. They're just not there right now. And so we need people too working on improving that part of the system. But remembering that that child doesn't go anywhere alone, I think is really important as well. So what else in your guys' experience can either families do to encourage professionals to listen better? What sort of posture can we bring to the conversation? And then from the other side, what is it that makes for effective communication from a professional, from a case manager, from a doctor, from a teacher? What do they do well that makes you feel heard, that makes you feel like you're part of the team? Are there differences in how they act, how they ask, that helps you feel like you are part of that team and that you are being listened to and that you are feeling supported? What can people do to help you feel that way?
This isn't necessarily during the actual process of getting information, but at the end, there is a person, I think she's the assistant director of special education at the high school level for my daughter's school. And I just love, at the end of every one of our conversations, she kind of summarizes what we've talked about. And she said, okay, so here are the things I am going to do. And that lets me know that not only did she hear what I was talking about, but she also is thinking about, and what can she do? How can she be impactful in this? And then it gives me an opportunity to also say, oh, that's not quite what I meant, or I don't think that's going to be helpful because, or that sounds fabulous, please do that. So it really gives me a chance to kind of circle back and really say, yes, that's it. And then she always says, and I will get back to you. And she tries to tell me as best she can a date. Sometimes it's, I have to contact 4 people. I'm not sure how soon they will get back to you or get back to me, but I will update you in 1 week. So that's really helpful to me in knowing sort of like, did she hear me? What's her plan? And then what's the timeline? So then I'm not stuck wondering, do I bug her? Do I ask? Do I, and it keeps me from losing track of things too, because that's really easy to do when we're contacting multiple people about multiple things and waiting on this and waiting on that. It's really easy to drop the ball on something and forget that you haven't heard back from someone in 3 weeks. And, now all of a sudden it's feeling much more timely. So I really appreciate that summarization, the piece that she does.
I definitely have to agree with that. It is so very important to summarize, to pause and look at people in their eyes, to see, because a lot of people, one thing that Rose mentioned was when she's on the phone, and she listens for tone. When you're staring a person in the face, it's not hard to determine if a person is understanding what you're saying or not. So if they have that glazed over look, then absolutely, don't be shy. Don't feel like that you have to be in an uncomfortable position. And specifically and absolutely for a person that may not look like you, we can't make the assumption that they do know or that they don't know. So it's best to just ask the questions if you sense or feel that something may be wrong, or does that make sense? Or, asking it in a different way or telling it in a different way, and to know that, going back to the other piece that Tim mentioned, that medical jargon, like we're not the experts in all of those big humongous words about what's going on. And while, you know, it may appear that a person may not be educated, they absolutely can 100% be educated. However, just not in your field. And there's nothing wrong with having to explain in a way that a 5-year-old can understand what you're saying. You know, as a professional, you know that language. That's not something everyone has went to school for.
I just want to build on that too and agree with both of them, you know, check in, make sure everybody's on the same page. Along with that, that trust is huge. That trust bond, because if somebody's finally coming to you saying they need help, I mean, how many times have you been, you know, even somewhere fun and somebody say, does everybody understand? And you might not understand, but you're not going to be the first one to ask, right? Because you don't trust the person in front of the room or next to you isn't going to judge you and be like, Rose, you idiot, you know? But that whole trust thing, and it, I think you need to know the setting you're in on your level of being open and honest and that trusting, okay? Because unfortunately, there are some with the mindset of got you, but yet there are some with the mindset of total trust me, whatever you say is only going to be used for either my knowledge base to be gained on how to support you or how to support the next person that calls me or my own family interaction. I think it's hilarious sometimes when we talk financial stuff that I'm enrolled Southwest Wisconsin, just so you know where I'm at, right? Which means we have a lot of agriculture. And one of the things in agriculture is we tend to produce a product having no idea what we're going to get paid in the end for that product, right? And so imagine running a business that way for 60, 70 years of your life. You then have to trust that at some point you're going to get what your product is worth, right? So when I bring people out to do presentations and everything out here, and I start explaining to the crowd what the presenter's trying to say when they say, unfortunately, we can only take so many Badger Care clients versus private insurance, you know, they're trying to nice it up. And I've heard that presentation outside of our area before, and I understand where they're going. And pretty soon I see, like you guys said, the glazed look on the crowd's face, right? So I'll raise my hand and I'll say, folks, what they're trying to say is it's going to cost them $2,500 to do a diagnostic. If you are Badger Care, they are only going to get $250. Now, I've had presenters at the front of the room basically stare me down and say, you are throwing me under the bus. But that's not how we roll out here, because everybody instantly gets trust in that presenter because we know producing a product for one price, but getting it for a different. So it's trust, but it's also know your audience, how much you can tell them, how much you can engage with them at this point. You can always work from that point on out, but you can't kind of go back. Does that make sense?
This is Barbara. I really appreciate hearing from all of you today. I'm curious, you know, lots of people talk about trust, and I'm curious from your perspectives, what can people do when they're first meeting new people to gain trust?
I say, first of all, be open and honest. You don't know what you don't know. That's one of the first things. ask more open-ended questions. It's okay to ask closed-ended questions, but I think open-ended questions just kind of gives us a better input and allow the person or the family to speak to give you the end, let them know. And for me, there's several different ways that I can do it. It's dependent upon the family. I'll also say that. One thing in the work that I do, so I run a grief support organization, and of course, in that space, it's really hard for people to open up about what they are looking for in regards to supporting, like how much is too much to share, and all of those things. So I generally start with opening up about myself, how I got in the work, why I got in it, who is my son, when was he born, when did he pass away. So the more that you are opening up and willing to share with them, then people are also willing to give you that back. And I say that from many different spaces. And I know it's kind of hard doing that being a medical professional, but even explaining why you chose to be a psychologist, why you chose to be a cardiologist, what's the importance of it for you. You didn't just come into the role for money. And with everything that's going on, especially again, as it relates to and is about, African-American cultures and people in our community, there's a lack of trust in medical professionals and providers. So the more that you're willing to open up to say, hey, this is why I chose to go into this field, because my goal and my role is just to support people and families, not about the income portion or the piece of that, then that can give a person the opportunity to calm some of the voices that they're hearing in their head, and also to alleviate some of the mistrust.
That's such a good point.
Lisa,
It can feel one-sided. That relationship can feel very like, here I am telling you everything and asking you for all this stuff, and I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your intentions are. I don't know how you're going to treat my information. So yeah, I love that idea of, starting out by saying, hi, I am here. This is my role. This is why I'm doing this. This is who I am in some ways. So obviously it's not, every little thing about you, but just sort of giving them a sense of who you are as a human being who has this job you're doing, rather than I am this job and I'm going to kind of hide behind that professional piece and not connect to them human to human, because there's such that's how you establish trust, I think, is by connecting as I am a person, I see you as a person, rather than I am a role and I see you as someone who's coming to me for help. And that is your role. It just really puts a block between people and makes it harder.
And I'll just say, this is the first day that I think Felicia and I have met, so I'm not really sure what all the acronyms and everything behind her name are. Sandy and I have talked a few times and so forth. And I know today we're kind of being presented as parents here, but also you can clearly tell other parents have found us for whatever reason, right? For myself, I almost think it's easier for myself to get that trust because I have this wonderful introduction line when somebody calls me, is say, okay, wait a minute, before you tell me too much, to make sure you know who's on the other end of this conversation, I do flat out tell them, I have a wonderful degree in dairy herd management and agribusiness. So if you're wondering what the heck you're doing calling me about special needs, I have a son that started us on this journey. And if I don't know anything, and that's what's really cool about being connected to Tim and the Southern Regional Center and everything, is because I kind of feel like I have this safety net. I know I have this safety net that I don't feel adequate to field these phone calls and to be the one these families are going to. But I know I can call smarter people and say, okay, here's what the parent told me. I've heard stories enough. I think this is what you need. Can you help them from here? And then I just step out of it until it's 7, 8 o'clock at night and the parent needs something else. And most of the time it's just an ear. So to get that trust is kind of to say, I'm not the one that can totally help you, but I will help you find that one.
Other ideas, suggestions about how trust can be built with that initial meeting?
I think in my role, also, it's really important to, one way to build trust is to make sure that whatever you're saying you can do or you can't do, that you can follow through on that. Because a lot of times we come in and we want to help people and we say, yes, we're going to do this and this and this. And then all of a sudden it doesn't go through. And that really damages that relationship with that family member when you're not, being good on what you're telling them. So I just think, like, as much as we'd want to do everything we can and support families and try to make the best outcomes for them, we have to be realistic about what we can provide people and what we can't provide to people, and just know that that does more for that relationship in the long run than the short term.
I like that. Um, I like that a lot. Mainly because I think often you're kind of, especially when you have a child and you're supposed to have all these high hopes and high expectations and everything, and yet the systems you deal with are not strength-based. They're not strength-based conversations. So if we can actually, in our work, start switching that and being that strength-based person, but also being real and being honest. Oh, I truly tell people all the time, I am not the smartest one in this conversation, but I can link you to some pretty smart people in some organizations that, I think part of the time is truly, a few of you have said it now, people don't know what they don't know, because this journey is not a typical one. So give yourself grace for not knowing it, but also knowing you need to reach out and start trusting somebody. Sorry, Allie, I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. So I run kind of a support group on one Sunday a month right now, and I think what helps families really build trust is knowing their child's name, knowing the parent's name, remembering some of the needs that child has, maybe being able to verbalize that to the parent, and or checking in. So the kids are on site and the parents are on site. So just going in and checking, be like, hey, I know it's so-and-so's first day. I just want to let you know he's off playing with some other friends, like doing really great. And just that little check-in really helps. But also have a lot of families that continue to come back, which I think shows some of our new families that there is some trust already there and that there is some other relationship building. So if you can get other parents on your side or to know who you are, that in turn helps different people trust you, if that makes sense. But I think just the most important thing is telling parents who their kid is, and at the end of the day being like, oh, here's the child back, I know you're his mom or you're her mom or whoever it might be. Really helps kind of foster that trust. And then it helps just having the other really great parents that have been coming every single time to greet me and say hi, and to know that we also have that relationship.
Ellie, I think that's a really valuable tip for professionals, is that sort of take that 5 minutes to your pre-work. Whether it's somebody coming into the office or somebody coming in for the IEP or just for a meeting, or as much as you can know the person and something about them before they are in front of you, the more comfortable they are probably going to feel. And then, when you screw it up, make sure you apologize and don't put it on the parent. Go ahead and admit your mistakes.
I'm going to take us down a different rabbit hole for a second, because I know Sandy, you and I have had some fun on some emails lately and conversations and so forth. And Tim and I always do. But I'm gonna ask this to both Sandy and Felicia. How much do you actually kind of try to use humor a little bit to try and also gain this trust and kind of get that relationship going? Because, you know, obviously somebody's calling you with some pretty dark, some stuff, right? But I just want to know, like, how much do you try and tap into the other emotions to let them know, been there, done that, and we can find some humor in this. You know, you have an adult child that refuses to wear clothes around your house. That can get kind of humorous in the Zoom world.
For me, thanks Rose for asking that question. So if anyone does not know that I lost my son Zaire 6.5 years ago, and I often say, and probably have told Tim several times, that I have an awesome relationship with dark humor and grief and bereavement. So for me, even in that space, and even as I work with families of, children that have special healthcare needs, and Rose, I know what you mean by that, because I had a brother-in-law who being naked was the thing that he loved to do. So I think for me though, it was really starting off in a place of, I don't mind starting with the dark and the gloomy stuff, because I think that's what leads you into being able to have a conversation about everything that is going right. So that could look like there, in conversation, even with the families of there's going to be times where this seems like it's entirely too much and you literally have to laugh to keep from crying. And that's okay. That's not to say that you are, looking at ways to go away from what your experience is. However, it's just saying, man, this is crazy. I really have to find humor in what I'm experiencing. And absolutely knowing for me that there's nothing funny about Zaire passing away. However, just the way that I continue to move through the world and what's happening, I could either sit and allow it to cause me complete grief where I'm not able to do anything, not just for myself, but for my children, my husband, and even other families, right? So there are ways. So like I said, realistically for me, it's just starting off with, every day isn't going to be sunshine and roses. There has to be the rainy days. And when the rain comes, we're just going to dance in it together. And whatever that looks like for you, that's what it looks like. And that's why you have, me and Sandy, Rose and Tim and everyone else on this call to support you along those journeys, because we know, it could get tough. So I think it goes back to being honest, being open and 100% honest for what could happen, what could potentially happen, and what's to come. Still on mute, Sandy.
Sorry, I thought I hit the button, but I didn't. I'm a big believer in life in general, that there's kind of not quite two sides to everything. But like Felicia, you and I were talking about yesterday, life and death, they go hand in hand. And I think that sadness and humor, they also need to go hand in hand, because you can't always live in one or the other. That's not reality. That's not how life works for people. And you need to be able to find ways to sort of get the humor where it comes, where it fits, to kind of lighten up situations, so that then when you're not in a humorous situation where it is really a dark moment, it's more tolerable, because you're not going to stay there. That's not where you're going to live. You will definitely have those moments, but just funny things that, like in our household, my son describes his sister as annoyingly loving, and he's a teenager, like that totally fits. And we're all like, get that, and it's not quite rude, but it's just so, like, we kind of laugh because we get it, and we're like, that's just being realistic. That's just calling something what it is. Now I don't think she has a version of that for her brother. She's kind of not that kind of kid at this moment, but we'll see someday if we get something really kind of fun out of her for him. But I think that it's that accepting everything, the whole range of emotions, the whole range of experiences, because that's what we have. And so definitely acknowledging the hard times, but also kind of celebrating the good times and allowing both to be there. So yeah, you make jokes about some things because you need to lighten the mood so that the dark isn't as deep and long, but they're both necessary.
All right, we are approaching the end. We try not to make these too gosh darn long so that people can get through them without falling asleep. Not that you're not interesting, just saying that sometimes people are watching these late at night. So any final thoughts that are out there? Now would be the time.
I guess something just dawned on me, and I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm basically gonna watch Felicia and Sandy, your guys' reaction to this.
Oh, good.
Because I said this in a meeting the other day and it kind of took people back. And I guess we're talking about support for the families and everything. And take us down another rabbit hole. What if that ask for the support actually came from the individual that needs it? We are in our household, we have a teenager now. And the really awesomeness has been he's starting to find his voice. And he's starting to empower us to ask the professionals about what support we need, you know? And so what if the support for the family, it's mom calling, but what if we ask mom her comfort level in bringing the child to the conversation? Thoughts?
100%. Absolutely. The child should be allowed. We are the experts of our children until our children can be the expert for themselves. Just like we have to say, what do you need? How can we support you? And because you're the parent, yeah, you know, but I have an 18-year-old who doesn't even have a special healthcare need, might I add. What support looks like for him based upon what he needs is completely different than what I need. My 11-year-old, 6th grader, developmental delay, she sits in her IEPs herself. And I ask her, any questions? Is there anything you need to say? Is there anything you need for your teachers or, the staff to know? And she'll literally sit and have a whole conversation. It's like, well, does she really have a developmental delay? Absolutely she does. But she knows 100% what the heck she needs. And it's important to listen to her because no different than we are saying, we're the experts on our children, just like the expert of the medical professional is that expert. They're the experts on themselves. So I agree 100%, Rose. They should always be a part of the conversation, especially when it's about him. And I'll leave that final thought with Tammy Baldwin said something so amazing. She said, when you're outside of the room, the conversation is about you. When you're inside of the room, the conversation is with you. There's no reason I should have a conversation without my child present, especially if we're talking about my child.
I'm lucky my kids are 14 months apart. So although my daughter is older and is the one with the developmental disability, it's given us a really good opportunity to kind of say, well, what would we want to do with our son? We want him to learn to do these things. Why wouldn't we want her to learn to do these things? They may look different, but the ultimate goal is I want her to have the ability, should she desire that, to be able to live independently, however that means and looks for her. And so if I want those things for her, I have to help her know and learn how to be able to advocate for herself, how to be able to ask for what she needs, tell people what she needs, guide things. So, and isn't that what I would do for my son? It might look different based on their individual needs, but the concepts are similar. So from a very early age, we were really lucky that we had a birth to 3 occupational therapist who's very good about talking about building in these skills from birth to 3 years. You know, you offer a choice. Do you want this or this? Okay, as they get older, you build those choices. So just, you know, simple things we started with was like, okay, do you want to wear these shorts or those shorts? And then as she got older, we would say, well, this is what the weather is like today. You know, and then what do you want to wear? And she would say shorts. Okay, that makes sense given the weather. So building up those skills so that the person can be making their own choices, decisions as best as they can to the abilities they have. And so that things are so that again, we're allowing them to make choices rather than we're not doing to someone, we're doing with someone. And then they can do with or for themselves rather than have things done to them by others. We're trying to raise people who are going to become adults, and we have to start that process when they're kids. We can't just say all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you're 18. You know, we have to, just as we would with any other child, you help them along the way. You expect developmental progress that you support in however that looks for that person. So yes, Rose, absolutely.
One of the joys about doing something like conversations or showing up for kids is that I usually get the last word in. And so you guys have left me with many fantastic thoughts. One of which is believing that people have answers within themselves and believing that people are experts of themselves, and that my job is to form an environment where they can discover those answers for themselves. The other thoughts I wrote down are listen to support, don't just listen. Watch for the glaze. I thought that was a fantastic comment. And then my last thought is that may we all continue to be hot, honest, open, and trusting. And so as we head into November, I hope that you all be hot. Thanks for being here today, and take care. I'm going to end the recording. If anybody wants to hang out for a few minutes, that is also fine. Thank you so much, Rose, Sandy, Felicia. Thank you, Anna, Barbara, Allie, and Loretta for being here and for contributing. I had a lot of fun today. Thanks.